Before jumping onto the slides, I would just like to, speak something about that, what exactly data analytics and how in a normal day-to-day activities also we are using data analytics. So if we can just remember our CA clearing days when we were just studying for our CA examination, we might have analyzed some of the questions, some of the topics which were so important in the exam, and we have. So this is something which is a very basic level analytics which we have performed at that time. So when we used to study for an exam, we used to prioritize, okay, these are the topics which needs to give more priority as compared to some topics. That is done on the basis of an analysis which we have performed on the question papers, so that we can try to analyze the behavior of the examiner, that which topics the examiner is going to target upon, so that we can also prepare our studies accordingly. So this is also a basic level of data analytics which we used to perform. So nowadays, so I won't say that data analytics is something which is coming these days only. So we are been using data analytics since long, and this is the generation, since right now we are living in an age of Facebook, WhatsApp, and I'll just try to keep my entire slides linked with these applications only, because I think we are more familiar with the applications like Facebook, WhatsApp. So I'll just try to link that how these companies are leveraging their business activities through data analytics, and how data is going to be the next revolution in the world. Okay, so I believe that my friend Sushant has rightly said that the next if we talk about 90s scenario, the countries who were oil producing were more at the forefront, but now the countries who has most data centers will be treated as a country, as a global leader. And if you must be aware that recently there was some regulations regarding data localization also. So this was actually a case to prevent a scenario that in case if any war like situation happens, any country who is abundant with the data, they just need to shut off their data centers, so that the neighboring countries who are dependent on the data centers, which is situated in another company. I'll just try to explain you this with the help of an example. For example, we are right now, our major business activities are operated through Google. So Google having their data centers in United States, if they shut off their data centers for India, so half of the business activities in India get shut off. So that is the reason why regulations like data localization comes, and there is a condition now that the companies which is operating under the jurisdiction, under the geographical location of India, has to keep their data centers in India only, so that they can intact the valuable data of Indian citizens. So that is something which we will be talking about, and I'll just try to keep my slides more in a basic language. I'll just prevent myself from using technical jargon, so that everybody over here can understand. And I hope that most of this since this is a webinar which is organized by Mr. Khurana ji, he's a chartered accountant. So I just hope that a lot of chartered accountants out there, so they must be having query that how data analytics is changing the chartered accountancy's career, and what importance this data analytics is going to be for the chartered accountants while they are performing their audit or internal audits or any kind of fraud investigation. So since I have that experience, so I can just try to talk about it. So let me just jump on to my first slide, that is the type of data structure. So first we need to understand that there are two types of data structures. First is the structured data, and the other one is the unstructured data. So by name you can just try to recognize that what exactly we can classify under structured data. So anything which is a predictable structure, which is within a predictable structure, and on the face of it which you can recognize, so that can be categorized as a structured data. I'll just try to explain this with the help of example, so that you can be better able to analyze it. And anything which is not in a structured format is an unstructured data, right? So if we talk about our Excel sheets, our Word formats, so these are all Excel driven, predictable and recognized structures. So these are structured data. So we can perform our data analytics techniques on these type of tables. However, in recent times, since we have seen that companies like Facebook, WhatsApp, they have grown so much data that we are using unstructured data as well, so that we can leverage our business activities. We can check on the customer, we can try to prevent fraud, we can try to detect fraud by using these unstructured data as well. So it has to be a comprehensive unit, it has to be a comprehensive approach by using structured data as well as unstructured data. So unstructured data which is not defined in a spreadsheet, which is not in a traditional database, so that is an unstructured data. And very good example of unstructured data is social media activity. So right now, every time we upload anything on a social media, or every time we communicate anything on a WhatsApp platform, we are actually sharing our data with these organizations. And there are some data privacy laws which has established in Europe, which has established in US, and which India is also going through with. So these are all because of this, because these companies are utilizing this data so that they can leverage their business activities, they can sell it to the competitors, they can sell it to the other business houses so that they can earn money out of it. So these are all unstructured data. And keeping in mind the size of this data, see, every day, millions of posts are there being done on Facebook, and number of chats are being created in WhatsApp. So how these companies are using this data? It's not an easy job to analyze the amount of data these companies are handling. So we need to understand that there are separate softwares, there are separate analytical procedures, there are separate terminologies, there are jargons which are used for these type of data structures. And I will be covering that on later stage. So I just want to first give you a background that how exactly data works. So how exactly data can be categorized. The one part is structured data and the other part is unstructured data. I'm sure that if you have a look at your daily activity, you will be able to understand that okay, this part of the data is just structured data and this part of the data is unstructured data. And an effective data analysis is done by using both type of data. We cannot just ignore one type of data and just use the other set of data. So we have to use both set of data. I'll just quickly give you an example. So recently, since we are familiar of income tax department is undertaking a very good project which is known as Project Insight. So what they are doing, it's a data analysis project only, which is driven by some technology firm. So my firm was also one of the part of this project. So that's why I'm just getting a hint of it. So how they are leveraging data analytics. So income tax department also has a very strong financial data of their taxpayers. So by using this information along with using their activities on social media, they're combining all these data together so that they can try to analyze who are the tax evaders. For example, if one person has disclosed a nominal amount of income in his income tax return, now the income tax department can chase the data from the social media activity, and in case that the same person is uploading photographs of foreign trips, of luxury watches, luxury cars, so that type of data sets can be used to send notice to these type of taxpayers so that there is an anomaly. So these are red flags. So the basic purpose of a data analysis is to identify some red flags that is being used in a fraud prevention or a detection activity. However, it can be used for seeing any business insights. If we want to understand data and on the basis of that data, if we want to derive some valuable insights out of it, so we will be using that data so that we can improve our existing operations, we can leverage our business activities, we can increase our sales, and we can better provide a customer oriented services. So this is an overview of data structure, two type of data, structured data and unstructured data. Now I'll quickly move on the next part. So I was talking about Facebook and WhatsApp. So they are generating, n number of data. The quantity of data these applications are generating on a daily basis, or we can say Google as well. It's very big. So that is a terminology which is used for these type of data. It's big data. So we must have heard about it, big data. So I'll just see try to categorize this into three parts. So first is, if the volume of the data is high, the velocity, or by velocity we mean the speed at which the data is getting uploaded, and the variety of the information. If that is high, that is extreme, that is big data. In simple words, the data size should be as big as possible, which through a normal software, for example SQL or normal programming language, you cannot analyze. So you need some advanced analytical tools to manage these type of data, and you can leverage these data by just performing analytical procedures, and you can just try to improve your business activities. So for example, how Facebook is operating. So Facebook, when the Facebook started, Facebook was not that much big. So people started uploading data, right? So people started having a parallel life. Most of the people are living a social parallel life on Facebook, which they might not be living in a normal scenario, right? In a normal their day-to-day activities. So Facebook is actually optimizing this data and just trying to improve their processes with the help of this type of data. So that is all big data is. So we, as I said in my previous slide, it has to be a comprehensive approach when we are performing an effective data analysis, and we have to consider both set of data, that is structured data as well as unstructured data, whenever we plan any type of engagement. So that is something about big data. So most of us have heard about data mining, and that is a one term which is, I think, is used often interchangeably. But data mining is something which is a subset of data analytics. So I will just try to explain you in normal terms. For example, when we are just trying to analyze some patterns, just trying to analyze the size of the data, that is called data mining. It's called data crunching. So for example, if I have a set of list of students, I just want to see the basic demographic, that where exactly these students belong to, the number of students in this data, and the age pattern of this data, and how much that student is scoring, whether any particular area students are scoring high, whether any particular area students are scoring less, whether any particular religion students are scoring more. So that is called data mining. So just trying to identify any pattern, just trying to identify any is useful information out of it, that is just one part of data analytics. However, data analytics as a whole is a whole lot of activities, and it includes data mining in it. So data mining has to be one part of data analytics. Now using this information so that I can improve my process, I can improve my revenue, I can improve my customer relation, and then try to hit on the target which I am planning to. That is called data analytics. So data mining, we should never confuse data mining with data analytics. Data mining is just one part of data analytics, and as a whole, data mining is just a subset of data analytics. So this is one part. Next is I will be quickly jumping on to data analysis process, that how exactly this process flows. So keeping in mind that I have a experience, I have a background of fraud detections, and also I am actually using these type of data analytics, techniques or methods in my working profile also, just to try to analyze that whether the data is as per the requirement, and whether we can just prima facie looking at the data, can we try to identify some patterns out of it, some red flags, so that we can lead our investigation to the right way. So that is how data is crucial for us. So every process, I should say every engagement, it comes in, if we try to bifurcate it, comes in four way. Okay, and specifically data analysis process, it is bifurcated into four phases. So I have tried bifurcating into planning phase, then it's a preparation phase, then testing, and post analysis. I'll be quickly getting into each of the phase more detailed. So when we start our data analysis process, first thing which we have to keep in mind, that any company or any organization, it can be a small organization or it can be a big organization like Google. So even if it's a small trader, they can also use data analysis for a small activity, just to see that whether their sales are targeted to the right customers, whether their customers are repeating, whether they are able to provide a better services to the repeated customers. So they can use this data analysis process. And to start the process, first we need to understand. So if I have to start my data analysis process, first I need to understand the data type, on what data I have to perform this analysis. That's basically my first phase. That's a planning phase, in which I understand the data itself, because I have to perform an analysis. There has to be a resource who is going to use some technical language or technical programming language in the data. So we can perform our data analysis on Excel as well, but there are some specialized programming language which is used for data analysis, like SQL. SQL is the most used languages for data analysis, and nowadays Python is also very used. And for big data, there are softwares like Hadoop and all. So for planning phases, first we need to understand the type of data on which we have to target. So understanding the data is the first step in my data analysis process. Then I have to lay down some examination objectives. So see, if I am starting my data analysis process, there has to be something in my mind which I have to achieve. So the first foremost thing which I am doing at the time of planning is the end thing. I'm just trying to forecast that where exactly this data analysis process is going to lead, because every time I'm performing any data analysis time, it is going to involve some human resource, it's going to involve some software, so there is a cost incurred. So I need to know that in which direction I'm going. So it's very important to define some examination objective, that through this data analysis process where exactly I'm leading to. For example, it can be a fraud investigation engagement, or it can be a cost optimization engagement as well, where my end objective is to identify, from looking at the data, from analyzing the data, whether there are any chances in the existing process of a company where I can hit and I can reduce some cost. So there can be a possibility of redundant cost in the operating cycle. So there are chances that we, through data analysis, we can try to figure out those instances and reduce our cost. So there has to be an end objective. So after understanding the data, we need to first set that, okay, these are my end examination objectives, so that I have to flow to that direction. And since I am a fraud professional, so I'm just keeping it to the fraud related activities. So in case if I'm engaging myself into a fraud investigation activity, so before starting my data analysis, I need to first build a profile that has to be laid down some potential fraud which I am targeting by this data analysis. So there has to be some potential frauds profile. So just by looking at the data, so I have, every company these days have internal audit departments. So, and if I talk about internal audit department nowadays, and after this pandemic, most probably every internal audit department has to incorporate some of the data analysis process. And even in our normal audit, I think whenever we are doing that analytical review procedures type of thing, even though we are doing some ratio analysis, we are actually in our day-to-day activities also. If I talk about chartered accountant students, chartered accountant who are doing audit and doing into control examination processes, so they are involved in data analysis process. So the level of the activities in which they are involved into, it can vary. For example, a data scientist will be involved at a very advanced stage. For example, a normal auditor will be using some basic level of data analysis process just to make his audit programs more effective. So in case if I'm into a fraud examination, I will be building a profile just to identify the potential fraud and whether any predication exists. And by predication means that where exactly there it's a basically how should I put it? So it's more like a professionally described logics that a fraud is existing in the process, or a fraud is there, or it might be there if we do not plug that particular loophole. So that's my planning phase, which covers the building a potential fraud scenario, checking whether the predication exists, examination of the objectives, and understanding the data requirements, that what exactly is going to be my data, what are the fields of the data, what are going to be the rows, columns, and how many data types, whether there any linkage between the data, what is going to be the format. Because according to the formats, according to the type of data, I have to see that what all softwares, what all human resources I have to keep on that project. So that is going to be my planning phase. And the second phase which I am going to jump upon is the preparation phase. Once I have understood the data, then I have to identify the relevant data sets. That is very important. So now I've taken an understanding that how exactly is going to be the data. Now I have to select the relevant data, which has to be so much narrow it down, so that I can just rightly target on my data analysis. So every time I am just checking it. So data analysis is like broad activity. When we are performing any kind of small data activities in a particular engagement, it has to be very objective driven. So I have to understand that performing an analysis on the complete set of data at the same time won't be able to I won't be able to drive any valuable result out of it. So to perform a specific objective, I have to identify the relevant set of data on which I have to perform some tests, some validation, so that I can check any red flags, I can check any scope of process improvement. So that is very important, identifying the relevant set of data. And we just can't beat around the post. We just can't go around performing data analysis on the entire side. So we have to check that what are the specific relevance fields on which we have to perform our data analysis test. So that is the other preparation phase. So identifying the relevant data, then we need to obtain it. So now most of the people are I hope that they will be thinking that obtaining data is not a big thing, but when you are performing any kind of data analysis project, so obtaining data is also comes with a great lot of challenge. For example, if we have at the planning phase, we have tried analyzing that data is going to be in XML file. So if you don't know what exactly XML file is a it's a type of data output in which data is recorded in a defined schema. So that has an ability. So person who is familiar with these type of files, these type of formats, they can read data for it. But we cannot analyze data per se in an XML file. So we have to convert these type of data. So while we are obtaining these data, we have to keep it ready at our side that whether we have that capacity, whether we have that capability to convert this data into some structured format where we can perform an analysis. So obtaining data is one part, then converting it into a type of data on which we can perform an analysis is the second part. So generally XML files are converted into Excel files so that we can, now Excel is something we are all familiar with, we are using in day-to-day working activities. So Excel is something on which we can perform our analysis. So that type of data which we are looking forward for. So that is the type, that is one type of data on which we can perform our analysis. So obtaining data, then verifying it. So that this is also very important. So when we are entering into any engagement, so we have already laid down some procedures, we have already laid down some data requirements. So in case if we are not able to get the desired data, so that is very important to check at the preparation phase only before we start our interpretation or testing. Because in case if data is short of something, for example, if we are asked for a 5-year data and the data provider has given us with a 3-year data, so once we have done with our testing, later on at the post analysis phase, we will get to know that 2 years of data is missing from this. This is just an example, and it can happen in anything else. So we have to verify that whatever we have asked for as a data analyst, we have to check that, we have to verify the data at the preparation stage itself, that whatever we have asked from the data provider, whether they have given it or not. Because the person who is providing the data, they might not be an expert in it, but you keeping in mind that is a data analyst, you have to check what you have required, what you have asked for, you have got it. So there are some validation tests also which we have to run on the data just to make sure that whatever we have asked, we have got it. Then we normally cleanse it and we normalize the data so that we can start our testing and interpretation phase. So planning is one, preparation is the another one. Now we will be jumping on to our third phase, which is a testing and an interpretation phase. So by analyzing the data, we generally list down some tests, some analytical procedures, some type of algorithm is there to analyze the data for what we are actually looking for. So we will be running those tests, those algorithms on the data so that we can take any results out of it, so that we will be able in a position so that we can analyze those results, analyze those findings, and use it for the objectives for which we are performing this data analysis. So this is third part, testing and interpretation. By this we are just analyzing the data, and by analyzing I mean we can run multiple tests in SQL, in Excel, it can be in any programming language. And the last phase is responding to the analysis findings. Once we have received the results of our analysis, we will be analyzing those findings, we will be responding to those findings. So in case if we are able to successfully analyze any red flags to this data analysis, for example, if I am checking on a payroll data, okay, I will be cross verifying the biometric data with the number of candidates who has, or number of employees who has drawn their salaries. So in case if I am able to find out that this particular employee was absent on a particular date and still that particular person has received salary, so that type of data analysis, this is my finding. So I will be responding to this analysis finding by fixing accountability on the person who has made the salary of that particular employee, that why he was not able to detect that person was not present on a particular date, while computing his salary. So this can be a very small and very easy or short example of a data analysis finding. And how am I going to respond it? By linking these two type of data sets. So whenever any payroll guy is supposed to prepare a salary, he has to cross check with the biometric data. So that is one type of responding through this data analysis finding. And then there can be a monitoring, continuous monitoring of data through this data analysis process. So this is the entire data analysis process. I'll be jumping on the next slide. So in my previous slides, I have been talking about a lot of softwares through which we can perform our data analysis. But I think more accurately, what we should be focusing upon is the functions which that data analysis software should perform. So if
1-2 queries are there, Akash.
Yes, sir. Tell me. Just hold on.
Kindly inform the brief process under testing and interpretation phase for stock fraud analysis.
Sir, can I see the queries?
We'll send you.
Okay.
Please check.
Kindly inform the brief process under testing and interpretation phase for say stock fraud analysis. Okay. See, if we talk about fraud, stock fraud analysis, just hold on. Let me just go back to that slide. So by testing and interpretation, that is very subjective, and we need to be, first we need to understand that what are the allegations. So in case if we're performing any type of stock fraud analysis, there has to be some allegation that the forward front, on the basis of which we are performing this analysis. Because see, now there are two type of companies which is doing these type of activities. Any type of analysis which is performed in a normal day-to-day activities will be covered by internal audit process. So in case if we are performing any fraud analysis, that is any very a particular phase which is performed when any allegation of stock manipulations are there. So in case if we are able to identify that there are some stock manipulations, then we will be correspondingly performing any physical verification of the stock vis-a-vis the amount of stock which is present in the books of accounts of the entity. So in those scenarios, now that is also very depends. So in case if an entity has a large amount of stock, so we can't do that. So first we need to go through by their internal audit reports, whether the stock audit done by their stock verification reports. By the stock verification report, I meant any internal audit department who has done the stock audit reports. So we can use that report to perform the testing and the interpretation part. So if we are able to analyze any red flags in those internal audit report, then we will be going to next line, so that we can narrow down our approach in a particular area. For example, an organization can have their stock in multiple warehouses. So we just can't go around in n number of in all these warehouses to check whether there is any anomaly in the stock fraud in the stock. So we have to narrow it down to one of the warehouses where we can actually go and check whether there is any discrepancies. Now discrepancies can be in terms of physical presence of the stock. There can be manipulations in valuation of the stock. There can be a chances that the value of the stock is inflated or value of the stock is deflated, depending upon. There can be a chance that what organization had ordered and the type of inventory which they are receiving, there's a difference in this. So these type of activities are generally performed by invoices, by checking the quality control reports with the actual stock verification reports. So we need some technical guys for that. So these are all testing and interpretation activities which is performed in a stock fraud analysis. We have to be very particular about it. So any more queries?
No, I will send you 2 queries.
Okay, startups and newly initiative organization, how it's going to helpful. So I'll just quickly give you an example that how any startup or any new initiative can take an example. So I'll just give I'll try to give you an example of my friend to whom I given a suggestion. So he used to sell some articles online. So there are two types of activities if we are performing. So for example, if I am selling anything online and I'm getting I'm getting responses out of it. So if any person is inquiring out of me, for example, if I am receiving on an average 20 responses per day. So on an average, I'm receiving 30. On an average, I'm receiving 600 responses in a month, right? So I can record the entire contact information of these inquiry persons. I can try to jot it down in an Excel sheet, and on the basis of these information, for example, now if I have tried to identify that there are 600 inquiries which I have received in my last month, I can perform some analytical procedure on it. So that is something which I was covering in my latest slide. So I'll just try to give you an overview of that. So that is something which you will be able to clear, that how this startup and newly initiated will going to be helpful out of it. So they can check that out of these 600 queries, how many of these queries are unique, so that I can try to identify that who are the unique people which have tried contacting me in last 1 month. Then on an initiative basis, I can go back to these customers and try to inquire whether they are satisfied with the product and services which they have bought for me. And there can be a chances a lot of customers, they just inquire and they have not purchased anything out of me. So that so by just getting in touch with them, I can try to persuade them, I can try to convince them, or I can show my more products to them. So by now, in case if I am not recording these type of customer information, I'm not able to use it. Okay, now I have a ready set of data out of it, so I can use this data so that I can get in touch with my customer. So this is just one example. I'll be covering more examples in my later on slide. So next query, I'll just quickly see, just hold on. Sorting, pattern, classification, manipulation done by system or by human intervention or by both. So this is something I will be covering, just wait for it. So if I talk about I was talking about the core data analysis software function. So what I was talking about, that there are some some of the software, but these software functions has to be the enabler of any data analysis and analytics. So if I am performing any data analytics, okay, so as a data analytics, I might not know how to run a SQL query language, but if I am a good data interpreter and I have a programmer with me, I can guide him, I can tell him, because as a programmer, that person is just going to be a robot for me. I am going to be the brain. I will be telling them, okay, perform these type of analysis, perform these type of tests on this data, so that I can leverage something out of it. And this is generally which is happening nowadays in every organization. So they keep a technology team. When I was also working, so we used to have a separate technology team for that. And whenever we used to get any engagement, we used to take leverage these skills of these technology teams, so that I can understand data. Because as a chartered accountant, I might not be able to run those queries. Might not be able I might not be very familiar with the Python language, but as a programmer, that person is a pro in it. He has got that skill set, but he might not understand what is the requirement out of the engagement. So I will be using those skill set of a programmer just to perform the analysis. But for that, I need to understand that what type of analysis, what type of test I need to be performing. So as a chartered accountant, you should be able to understand that what software should be present in a analysis software. And analysis software can be any. If these software functions are present in a particular software, then it's useful for me. I will be quickly starting that. First, it's a gap test. For example, if I have received any data set, it can be a student enrollment data set. So every student has a unique roll number. So while performing a gap test, I will be able to identify whether there is any any gap between two roll numbers. Since roll number has to be in a chronological way, it has to be serially numbered. For example, after one there has to be two. If after one exactly three is coming, so these type of gap testing tools are there, through which I will be able to understand whether there is any gaps in a sequence. So gap test is a very important software function. Then we are using pivot tables in our normal Excel. So through pivot, we are able to analyze large set of data in a very small chart. So that is very useful, pivot tables. So one more thing, why we need enhanced softwares, I'm just breaking this in between. So we all know that since Excel is something which has a limitation capacity of 10 lakh rows. So what if my data set is more than 10 lakhs? So I can't use Excel and I can't perform, although I can record 10 lakh rows or 10 lakh transaction in one sheet, then I can record the another set of 10 lakhs in the other sheet, but I won't be able to perform the analysis of the complete set. So in these cases, I cannot use Excel. So I have to use some other programming language, let's say SQL, or I can build a programming software using Python so that I can, accommodate my entire data set in one software, and I can holistically review that particular data set. So now there are some fuzzy logic mappings. So what exactly I mean by fuzzy logics? For example, if I am just trying to identify my name is Akash Aggarwal, and I'm just trying to identify Akash Aggarwal from a data set. So since the name of my spelling starts with double A, and in Aggarwal it's double G. So in case if I am trying to find an exact match, in case if any name which is starting with single A or having only single G in Aggarwal will not be able to match that. So fuzzy logics gives me that ability, gives me that capability that I can try to match a similar word. So it will try to identify all similar words relating to Akash, which are similar to Akash, but not an exact match. So this is a fuzzy logic matching. Filter and display criteria is something I think I should not be explaining to you. Filter is something if we are just filtering the data. Duplicate searches is very important, since I was giving that example of customer inquiries in last 1 month. So by duplicate searches, I will be in a position to check that how many customer queries are repeated, so that I can just eliminate that one. So compliance verification is another one. Compliance verification, I'm just trying to say that these days the compliance department of companies, they are trying to take help of these software so that they can put in place their policies, put in their compliance functions in a software, and they can try to identify through with the analytical procedure. So I'll just give you an example of it. If anyone of us have given an online examination through a webcam, now these examination authorities have installed a compliance verification software, that in case if you try to deviate from the webcam during your examination, they will try to identify that pattern, and they can cancel your examination on the basis that you were not in the right sitting posture. The time during which you retracted from the webcam was too high, so you might be involving any cheating activities, or you must be using any other person's knowledge to crack your exam. So these are type of compliance verification softwares are being used. So the webcam, so this is also a data analytics software only, because webcam records data in an image format. So image is also a data. So there are some tools, there are some softwares which analyzes your sitting posture, and in case if you deviate from that posture, they will try to analyze that. Lenskart is very good example of this type of software. They are just trying to capture your photos, and then on a sample basis they can help you wear digitally any type of sunglasses, so that you can try to compare it. So this is a type of example of it. Then verifying multiples of the number, that is very normal. Now correlation analysis is very important. For example, if I have a data set, now I have to try to identify the different correlations between the data fields. So example, if the payroll expense of my organization is increasing, that has to be linked with the number of employees my organization is employing. So there is a correlation analysis. So there are softwares in which we put some fields in it. They will try to correlate these particular fields and try to identify that my payroll expense is increasing even though my payroll number is not increasing. So that these type of trends. So now how is this possible? So in case if I perform these type of analysis, correlation analysis, if I try to identify these type of red flag, I'm able to identify that my payroll expense is increasing. At the other hand, the number of employees which I have employed this year is not increased. So there can be a possibility that the out-of-pocket expenses or the reimbursement expenses, which is also clubbed in this payroll expenses, increased. So now I can further drill down my investigation or drill down my analysis on the payroll part, on the out of pocket expenses part only. So this gives me a approach so that I can drill down my investigation, I can drill down my analysis on a particular data set, so and I can focus on that particular data set only. So that is an example of correlation analysis. So joining files, so there's a joint term which is used in SQL. So if we want to join two data fields, so there is a joining field which to joining query which is used, and by that we join two data sets so that we can perform any relation analysis. So record selection is another one which is novel. I can select record, sorting and indexing. I can sort my data in ascending order, descending order. This is very, and indexing in itself is very important because by indexing we are able to identify the demographic of the data by nitty-gritties of the data. So graphing is another software function which is very important because see. We have to understand that data analysis is something which a data analytics team is doing for the senior management. Now senior management being so much senior in their roles and responsibilities, they don't have time to go through and drill down the entire data, and so for those type of senior management we use graphing tool. So on our screen we can see that it's a Tableau software on which I have recorded some graphing software. So by just noting the graph, I can see that there is an upward trend or the demographic of the data. So graphing is very important to have a prima facie look at the data and understanding that what elements and what criteria my data have. So data function is one. Stratification, and I can also link every of these analysis with the current analysis which I think the Indian government is performing on our COVID situation also. See, government is trying to do stratification by checking that how many patients belongs to the age group 0 to 30. So that is one strata. Now above 30 to 60 and above between 30 to 60 and above 60. Now on the basis of this stratification, they are able to make conclusion that the mortality rate is high above 60. So that is very important tool, which is I think everybody is adopting these days. So stratification is one. Now statistical analysis. So there are some statistical models, hypothesis driven, which we uses in our data so that we can take any stress testing out of it. We can test an hypothesis, and then it's a type of a statistical model which we prepare. So that is one type of function which has to be there. Then regression analysis. So regression analysis is very unique. So it's a statistical analysis only. So in regression analysis, we try to establish link between independent and dependent variables. So in case if we are able to find that when there is a defined regression equation, so it's a type of regression analysis. I won't be able to go in detail in this session. So these are some software functions which has to be present in a normal software analysis, data analysis software. So I will be jumping on the next slide. So these are some data analysis checklist. So when I say that data analysis checklist, I am just trying to say that these are some premises on which my data analysis start. So I need to make sure that these things stay in my engagement. These things has to be there. Otherwise, my entire data analysis will be gone with a rush. So first point is ensure data validity and data integrity. Data validity and integrity, we have already discussed this in our past slides, that we have to make sure that our data is valid and the data is the integrity of the data, that how correct data is. If we are performing analysis on a data which is not correct, in itself is a data analysis activity which we are not able to do. Okay, the results which we are going to get out of that data analysis is going to be sharp because the integrity of data was not there. So we have to ensure that data validity is there and data integrity is there. The second part, considering data formats and data structures, that is also something which we have already discussed, that we have to consider data formats as well and data structures. This is very important because accordingly I will be allocating resources, accordingly I will be allocating proper softwares for that. I need to have that particular team for that, so that those people can understand their data formats, understand their data structures, and can perform. So one very good example over here, which I would like to give you, and which I have done in my real case investigation, that generally in case if we try to find out that whether any person is in connivance with a fraud, we try to perform an email review. So by emails, so email is a data set which is an unstructured data set, because email that doesn't have any defined structure, which is, it's a predictable structure. So how through email, by doing email review, by analysis this email. So one way of analyzing emails is just by reading. So there are some statistical tools, there are some advanced level tools through which I can download, I can upload my entire email data set into that software, and I can perform some keyword searches so that I can just try to identify any particular conversation out of it. So that is also a very good example of it. So ensuring data validity and ensuring data integrity. The next one is considering data format, considering data structure. And the third, which is very important, is comparing the cost and the benefit of the potential analysis. We have to keep this thing in mind that every function in a business house is either supporting to the business unit. So we have to understand that there are some specialized team in every business. You name any business, so there are some specialized team who will be bringing business to the organization, and there are going to be some support team. And we, as a data analysis team, we have to understand this, that data analyst team or internal audit, these are all supporting team which is helping our business teams to expand their business, to generate more revenue, right? So we are those teams. So we have to analyze that. We can't suggest those improvements, those analysis which can lead to an exaggerated cost. For example, we have to first estimate that what are the beneficial point out of these analysis. If we are able to prove this, if we are able to justify this, then only we will be able to justify our budget. Because every internal audit team, whenever they are procuring any type of data software also, they have to propose that particular budget to the finance team so that they can approve it. But in case if that budget is going over and above the potential benefits which the organization might lead, so that is going to be an extra cost effect, right? So why I've covered this topic, I've covered this element over here, because every time we perform our fraud investigation engagement, we generally see that, okay, what is the amount of fraud which has happened. For example, if the amount of fraud has happened rupees 10 lakh, and I'm for performing an analysis and to crack that case, I've spent 1 crore. The organization is going to be in a bad situation where the fraud amount was 10 lakh and the analysis on that engagement was 1 crore. So that is, it's not a beneficial point of thing. So as a consultant, as a data analysis team, we have to keep this thing also in mind, that the cost and the beneficial analysis has to be kept in mind. And the last, and which is very important, is the point that we need to begin with the end in mind. That is the examination objective, which I was talking in my earlier slide also. We have to start with an approach. We have to see that where exactly we have to go. By analysis, if we are not able to prove anything, if we are not able to detect anything, we are not able to provide any optimization to the organization, our analysis will be will be of no use. So we need to keep that thing in our mind, that where exactly we have to go. So these are the data analysis checklist, which is very important. So now I will be talking about two types of analytics, which is very in demand these days, and a lot of people are even chartered accountants are getting into these domains. So the first one is the textual analytics, which is coming on your screen, and the other one, which I will be talking in my latest slide, is the visual analytics. So first, by textual analytics, I think that is very much clear, that by textual analytics I mean that we are going to perform some analytics on text. So it can be your WhatsApp history also. So last to last year, I think WhatsApp has started encrypting their chats. So just by just taking your WhatsApp history, I can try to analyze that what type of human being you are. So textual analytics is very important these days. And if I am trying to analyzing any unethical behavior, any emotional tone, any extraction, any linkage between two person, or anything, I have to focus on textual analytics. So that is something which I was given when I was given an example of email review we do. So email review also come under textual analytics. We can perform some fraud keywords searches. We can perform a cloud word. So by cloud word I mean, what we do, we generally segregate the entire words into one part, and then we check that what are the most used word in the person's speech. For example, when Mr. Narendra Modi was giving that speech on lockdown for the first time, you must have noticed that many of the news house reporters, they started analyzing that how many times a particular word has been repeated by Mr. Narendra Modi, just to stress upon that where exactly his speech was going to. So just by looking at that data structure only, by looking at that text only, I can see, okay, if Narendra Modi has used 25 times lockdown, and that is the highest number of repetition he has made in his speech, that means he was talking about lockdown only. So that is a very factual textual analytical process which we use to uncover any additional warning signs of potential fraud employee behavior. So it can be, so by text only I can get to know whether the person is happy, by whether the person is sad, by using their, by seeing their textual history, right? So that is one example. Now the other type of analytics which I will be moving on is visual analytics. So visual analytics is altogether very important. Data scientists are actually using this to represent various type of visual representation, so that just by looking at the presentation, looking at the graphs and looking at the slides, I can check that okay, this is the type of activity which is going on currently. So I'll give you a live example that how Indian government is also visual analytics to present a picture that where exactly the concentration of patients in the entire India. So that is a type of geospatial analysis where we plot the entire patient's data set on a graph, and now we can see. So even if you see that the government has categorized zones into three parts: red zone, orange zone, and green zone. That is a type of stratification through visual analytics they has done. So they have created what you can say, they have created a heat map out of it, that okay, these type of areas, and we have seen so many charts also. Just by looking at that chart only, we can see that okay, if my particular area is coming in a red zone, it's a very risky zone. So these are very informative and very useful visual analytics. So six type of analytics I will be covering in visual analytics. The first one is heat map. So what exactly is heat map is, I have just given you an example, just classifying your data into different stratas, so that you can just by the virtue of colors you will be able to analyze. So red is an example of, red is in a sign of risky thing, right? Orange is a medium thing, and green is a is a go signal. So just by looking at the diagram only, I am able to identify all those data which is falling in a red diagram. A red area will be a risky area. So I can categorize, and I can very well use this type of heat map in my audit observation. For example, if I am trying to show a presentation to the audit committee, okay, and I have to bifurcate my audit finding into three categories, and just to save time I will be categorized into red, orange, and green. Those green categories observations are going to be less important for me, because I'm not going to waste the audit committee's time. So I will be focusing more on the red part. So I will be discussing only the audit observations falling under the red category. And in case if the other person is interested upon in understanding the audit observations in my green category, they are very welcome to do that also, because it is bifurcated in such parts. So that is one set of analytics, heat maps. The second set of analytics is a tree map. So this is a chronological based off map. So we might be using it. So for example, I have done that project where you might be aware of that Ponzi scheme activities, which is a multi-marketing fraud which is happening. So we were investigating one case. So in that we prepared a tree map, that from where exactly and I'll just tell you that how exactly this type of analysis is useful. So we prepared a chronology where, for example, I am one person of that chain, and I have 1,000 people above me. Okay, one person is going to be the person who has appointed me in that chain. So I will be more interested in knowing about those people who have started this particular chain. and just by making this tree map, I will be able to understand that okay, these are the top 10 people who started this chain. So these are the main culprits, these are the main perpetrators who have actually started this Ponzi scheme, and then the person who are low in this tree are actually the victims out of this scam. So this is also a very good tree map analytics which we can use in our analytical procedures. Now the other part is link analysis. For example, if we have set of data, so this is very familiar with the name itself. So but just by linking the data sets amongst each other, we can perform the analysis. So as the diagram is self-explanatory, I believe. So applicant data is linked with the account holder data, that is linked further with the employee data. So that is also another type of analysis. Now, geospatial analysis, which I was talking about, that the Indian government is using just to categorize that, okay, Delhi is a red zone and Punjab is a green zone, Haryana is an orange zone. So just by looking at the demographic, geographical location at the face of it, I will be able to understand, okay, US is a country which is entirely red. Okay, India is a country which has less number of cases. So geospatial analysis is something which you might be seeing and which government is also leveraging to show that how exactly we can try to analyze our data. The next type of analysis is timeline analysis. So in a timeline analysis, we actually plot number in a timeline just to see that whether there is any improvement. So this type of analysis is generally used very well in a sales analysis meeting. So if I have to see that how many sales I've done in January, February, March, so I will be just plotting my entire year sales on the timeline map on the basis of the month in which that particular sale has occurred. And just by looking at the chart itself, I will be able to understand that in which month I was able to make more sale, so that I can link further it with the festive seasons or due to any natural calamity, that okay, in particular this particular, for example, in April, no automotive dealer has sold any car. So Maruti has sold zero car in April. So if they are going to plot this type of analysis on a timeline analysis or on a timeline graph, they will be able to understand and they can easily justify that also, and the analysis can be performed better. Now the last is the word cloud. Just so this is something which I have already explained. So when Modi was given an example, his speech, a word cloud was made, and just by looking at this speech only, at this graph only, or this picture which is showing at your screen, I can see that fraud is used the most. So by the size of the word and by the color of that word, I can try to analyze the frequency and the velocity at which the particular word is used. So these are all the data analytics techniques which we are using in our